Hello, hello, welcome. It's Wednesday morning, January 14th. We are now 2 weeks into the new year. I'm Nick Perro uh, on Banner and Backbone, joined by my good friend and colleague Melissa Corrigan of
Hello.
Counterstory Media, of Blue Amp Media, of Banner and Backbone, of Does She Shut Up, Pink Hair and Pronouns, all of the things, all of the
All of
amazing
the
things that
things.
Melissa does. Welcome. It's been a little while since we've actually sat down to speak,
Yes.
um, and I'm glad we're back together. How are you
Yes.
today? How is everyone in the chat as you start coming on in too? Say hi, hit that heart.
Yeah, I'm good. It's hard to believe it's been 2 weeks and not 2 months. It does feel a little bit like 2 months.
Oh, hey, good morning, Bobby. We've got Bobby Jones in the audience with us right now. Good morning, Bobby.
Bobby Jones. We love a Bobby Jones.
If you do not follow Bobby
I
Jones, he
want the
is,
radio voice of Bobby
ooh, yeah.
Jones.
He's coming
Oh,
on for one of my intelligent masculinity discussions, and it's just going to be smooth talk
I love
radio
that.
for an hour.
Yes.
Bobby and me just chatting back and forth. I know he's
Right.
got a great voice. I've got a good radio voice. So, we're just going to have that nice little
Mhm.
radio voice day and just hanging out on Sick of This Shit with Nick.
Right. There's a here in Hampton Roads, there's a local our local NPR has a guy named Jay Sinnott, and he's a jazz musician. He's a jazz drummer, and he's pretty big in the jazz world. But he's had this jazz show for like 20 years on our local public radio. He's like a local celebrity. And sometimes I wish he would have Bobby Jones on to read us like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights over some sweet Coltrane. I think it would just be
Ooh, that would be
excellent.
so nice.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Bobby, I know you're listening, so I think we should do that. Even if it's somewhere just like on Banner and Backbone or on do it on Lincoln Square,
Yeah.
do it on your podcast. Just read the Constitution and read the Bill
Mhm.
of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the
I'd
Federalist
listen.
Papers, just in a smooth voice with a little bit of soul behind it. That would be so fucking
Right.
awesome. That would go down in the history books as probably one of the coolest demonstrations of like civil
Yes.
solidarity. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's Melissa Corrigan and Nick Perro. We may be joined by some of our other friends from Senate America, Evan Fields, if he's able to join us this morning, as well as Shane Yurick has an invite if he wants to jump in with us at any time. Bobby, if you'd ever like to be part of one of these conversations, I'd be happy to send you an invite too for one of our upcoming discussions. Today on the window of discussion, we're going to be doing actions in practice and what we're actually doing and what we're working on this year, and what we're working on right now to make your lives better, to combat and go on the offense against fascism and the white supremacist takeover and the new Confederacy takeover of the US, um, and how we're fighting back. And using those tools to support each other. And it's been a while since Melissa and I have talked about some of these things.
Yes.
So both of us have really cool updates for each other and for y'all. And I'm really excited. Melissa, do you want to start?
What updates am I start I mean, there's so much. There's so much. In terms of like there's so much I'm doing on multiple levels, like here on
Yeah.
Substack and then in my community. But something that I did commit to because I started like I was exhausted over the holidays. I was absolutely exhausted, and I started looking at why I was so tired, and I realized that I have young adult kids who live with me, and through their adolescent years, they could give a shit less about learning any of the things that I really wanted to teach them, like homesteading, growing your own food, processing your own food, sort of practical life skills like that. They were like, that's lame, whatever. I can always order DoorDash. And now in the evenings, they are coming to me more and more looking for guidance and just wanting to like process what's happening, what's going on. They are alarmed, they're scared, they're angry. They're really angry. My young adult sons have a real revolutionary spirit that needs to be calmed down a little bit. So what I've decided to commit to is my evenings are going to be our training grounds. And so we are learning lots of that boring stuff, the homesteading stuff, how to grow your own food, how to store that food properly, um, how to guard your home, how to be safe in your home, whether that's electronic safety, doing your best to be anonymous online in as many ways as possible. Basically, don't just give it to Big Brother. Do what you can do to be safe online. And then, some firearms training. My oldest is interested in that. He's 21 years old. I think it's fair for him to now be interested in that, but I want him to be trained in the correct way. So we're going to be doing some official training, and that extends to some of my kids' friend groups. So I am just doing like some sort of training for what could possibly come next in our country.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty fair. Yours are very practical in life skills that you're doing right now with your kids.
Yes.
I think
Right.
it helps. Yours are, like you said, yours are a little older. Mine are still too young right now to
Yeah.
really process and understand what is going on. Like my daughter's old enough to start asking questions and beginning to form some initial thoughts and opinions, but she's still too young. Like she's not even a teenager yet. And
Right.
I don't want to put that type of emotional burden on her. Really, I know she could handle some of it, and she has, and she asks questions, and we tell her some of the things, like small things, but we handle some of the emotional burden still for her. And our
Right.
son is completely oblivious because he's too young, and like he's not even 10. And so there's no reason to tell him. What would it do? It would frighten him. Um, Whereas my daughter can process it a
Right.
little bit, but we keep most of the emotional burden. So I think, how do you how would you recommend, as someone who's gone through the process, as a parent who's gone through both now younger and older kids, and is going through older kids and doing it in real time right now, how would you suggest teaching some of these skills to my younger kids, and for anyone in our audience, teaching these types of skills to our younger kids, um, without frightening them, um, but teaching them so that they know that these are useful and valuable skills for themselves in general?
Yeah. I mean, some of this is stuff that we've taught our kids forever. Stranger danger. So all my kids now know what a judicial warrant looks like. I've shown them pictures, and they all understand that we don't open our front door unless someone presents a judicial warrant signed by a judge, and they know what that looks like. And I think that's pretty fair to do at most ages. My 6 year old also knows that. My 6 year old knows to not open the door ever to go get
Oh yeah.
someone that's older. So, starting with basic sort of home safety training, and just reiterate, we don't open the door, we go get an adult. In terms of those hard life skills, the growing your own food, gardening is something my kids always loved doing when they were little. It's fun to
Hmm.
play in the dirt, to watch a seed turn into a plant and then turn into something that grows food. I've never had to really convince any kids I worked with, whether my kids or I ran a community garden for kids years ago at a job that I had, and those were kids that were extremely traumatized. They came out of, it was a residential mental health care facility, and these kids had been through intense trauma, and gardening was very grounding for them, and it was very satisfying for them to see something go from seed all the way to food. It was almost meditative for a lot of those kids. So gardening is something that's pretty easy. In terms of other more difficult conversations, I pulled my kids out of school for a couple years when they were younger, and we were very privileged to be able to do that. But part of the reason that I did that was so that I could take them and place them in locations. So I took my kids to the Lorraine Motel where Dr. Martin Luther King was shot. I took my kids to Selma. I took my kids to in South Carolina, which is where we lived at the time. There are still plantation homes that exist.
Hmm.
So I was able to take them to a plantation. And so that's the biggest thing to me, is that a lot of schools aren't doing field trips anymore. They don't put kids in an environment. And to me, there's really no lesson like that. There's no book that can really convey the same feeling as putting your kids in a location, taking them to Smithsonian's where they can look at the right plane, in
Hmm.
real
Yep.
life, tangible. It makes history tangible to them. And I think it's been really profound in the way that it shaped the way my kids see the world and see their own place in the world. And never, this is the thing that frustrates me, never ever did my kids ever feel ashamed of being white. That's the thing. They were never
Yeah.
shamed for being white. Nobody ever told them you need to feel bad now standing in the Lorraine Motel, standing in the Civil Rights Museum. Um, did they feel bad? Of course, because if you look at objective presentation of history and you're white, you should feel bad. Like there should be some sort of emotion evoked there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
placing your kids in those environments with yourself as a support. Hey, if it gets too much, if you want to talk, I'm here. I took my kids to the Holocaust Museum, and they have a great exhibit that's free, and it's called Daniel's Story. And you can walk through with your children. It is suited for kids, but what it does is it does end with Daniel dying. So what it does is allow your kids and allow you as a parent to gauge if your child is ready for the full museum before you go into
Hmm.
the museum. So I think that's a phenomenal idea. I think they should probably implement that in other, you know, museums that cover
Yeah.
material like that. Because I took my kids, and my youngest son was not ready. He was really upset about Daniel's story. So, I could gauge at that time, okay, he's not ready to go through the whole museum and
Yeah.
see the rest of this. So, as a parent, being a support, being there to answer questions, but you're not there to place the narrative on them and tell them you need to feel bad about this or you need to feel good about this if you're a weird white supremacist family, I guess. Um, it's just giving your kids the dignity of processing history when it's presented to them in an age appropriate way is absolutely pivotal. Kids aren't dumb. Kids are able to process a lot more than we give them credit for, and
Hmm.
presenting historic information in a tangible, hands-on way as much as you can physically, if you can afford to go to these sites, to put your kids in those sites. I think that's the number one way to teach your kids history in an appropriate way, and and allowing them to process it in their own way. And out of that, you're probably going to see your kids impress you. When I took my kids to the plantation, we go through the whole, we were homeschooled, and it was like in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, so we were able
Hmm.
to essentially get a private tour, like a school tour. And so they gave us the whole tour of the plantation grounds and then the house, and then they're kind of done with the tour, and my youngest son, who was 8 at the time, just looked around and said, well, where are the slave cabins? Where's the slave stuff? Where, like, and the
Yeah.
guide sort of was taken aback for a second, and she said, I've never had a child ask me that. Um, but here, I'm going to show you what we're working on. And she took us back in the woods, and there was an archaeological dig going on in coordination with a local college where they were
Oh,
digging
that's
up the
awesome.
foundations of the slave cabins so that they could rebuild them and present a more accurate representation of life for enslaved people on that plantation, that it wasn't all just wholesome pioneering white people, that there was a lot of trauma that was endured on that land as well. And I was incredibly proud of my son in that moment and surprised by him. um,
Hmm.
but that just shows, when you give your kids the dignity and the space to learn, they're gonna they're probably gonna surprise you, and they're gonna be able to comprehend a lot more than you think they are.
Good life lesson. Thank you, Melissa. I also really appreciate that. I think it's amazing that that plantation is doing that, that the owners of that historical site are taking the time to recreate what it looked like in its entirety so people have the full
Right.
truth. Because one of the things that it sounded like to me in this, and this is how I understood, at least on the emotional side, or how I said it to myself, was it's the idea of shame versus guilt in all of this. Is it's
Right.
okay to feel shame that we enslaved black individuals, and we enslaved group natives, and we enslaved a lot of people in the US. It's okay to feel ashamed and shamed about that, but you don't have to feel guilty, because
Right.
shame is a communal emotion. Guilt is an internal personal emotion,
Right.
and you don't have to be feel guilty that you participated in slavery, but you can feel shame that our country did, and we learn from it. And I think
Right.
that's a big, you even if you are unconsciously doing that, that's a to me that's a really big, like, aspect of all of this, is how do we unburden ourselves from some of the emotions so that it's not I'm attacking the person who is like, I don't want to attack my neighbors. I don't want to. If you're a white supremacist right now, I probably don't want to attack you. I want to attack the ideology that
Right.
has turned you into that piece of shit you are right now.
Right.
And we have to understand and feel the shame of slavery and the shame of owning people and trafficking people, so that we don't do it again as a
Yeah.
community, as a country.
And I
Not
have to
so
say
that
that
you
if you
individually don't do it, but so that we
yeah,
all.
right. And if you are a parent and your kids are in a red state, I would highly encourage you to. I would assume if anybody is watching this show, they probably already do this, but I would highly encourage you to be incredibly proactive with your kids' education. Read the content that they're presenting to your kids, because we have several states that are now using PragerU as educational content, and that is in no way an educational organization. It is a propaganda mill. That's they pushed the narrative and are pushing the narrative that slaves were farm workers who came to this country to help build it. And that's so fucking absurd, man. And so we have to be aware. Number one, be aware of what they're teaching your kids. And number two, if you're not in a position to be able to homeschool them, you can't pull them out, then start planning your spring breaks, your fall breaks, your summer breaks, and take them to these sites where they're going to see the top three that I would absolutely recommend. Number one is the new African American History Museum, the Smithsonian Museum on the National Mall. It is profound. It will change the way you view a lot of things. It is pretty difficult. I would say probably 10 and up need to go in that museum. There are they do a pretty good job of putting certain exhibits in a way where you can skip them if you're with a child. They have a casket with Emmett Till's face in it. So it can be pretty, there's a whole room of photos of strange fruit. So it can be disturbing to kids. So, make sure you check it out beforehand and map your way through the museum if you're going with a child. But that is one as an absolute must go to. I think everybody in America should go to that. The second is the Civil Rights Museum that's attached to the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. Profound experience. When you walk in the front door, there is a cutout of a wooden ship with brown bodies stacked in the bottom. I mean, from the moment you walk in the door, you're hit in the face. They have a full bus that was used in the Montgomery bus, you know. So those are the two right off the top of my head. And the third would be try to find a local place for you. Probably Selma would be somewhere that would be within reasonable driving distance that you could take your
Even
kids. But
Little
look for
Rock.
local, or what?
Even Little Rock.
Or Little Rock, right. So look for someplace local to you that's somehow tied in with civil rights, and take your kid to that location and talk about what happened there. And how would you feel if you walked into this department store lunch counter and you were told you couldn't sit at the counter, and just have those sort of thought experiments with them. But those are the three that I would highly recommend parents take. You have to be proactive. Our public schools are so underfunded. They're not doing field trips anymore. When we were growing up, we took field trips to these type of places. It's just not happening anymore. So as a parent, you have to be proactive. And I talk about this a lot because being a parent, you can look at parenting in a lot of different ways. And the way I've chosen to look at it is that I run an incubator for future citizens of this world. Okay? I am producing human beings that are either going to turn out to be shitty people or they're not. And I have a great deal of impact in that. And so just like
Hmm.
a business incubator, you're going to cover every possible scenario as a, in a business incubator that would lead to failure. As a parent, you're doing the same thing. You're approaching all of these tricky sort of topics with your kids, from things like slavery, things like civil rights, to sex, to body image, to gender, all of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to take the job of parenting seriously. And in current times, you are raising the resistance, right? Like that's the way we're looking at it. You can raise kids who will put their head down and go along with whatever dear leader says, or you can raise kids that are going to actively resist for democracy. And that doesn't mean that you're raising kids that know how to stuff a Molotov cocktail. That's not what we're doing. I have to keep pulling
Hmm.
my oldest son back from that. And like, that's not going to do what you think it's going to do. That's going to make
It's
things
going to do the
worse.
opposite. Yeah.
Right. So you have to take this anger that you have and find a way to process it in a meaningful way. And if you are that angry, go take boxing, go take martial arts, find a way to have a safe outlet where you are also training yourself physically should a situation arise where you need that. But that's how you need to be channeling your anger. You don't need to be joining some crazy militia group that's running around and, acting like they're going to overthrow. That's not going to help anybody. And that's something that some of his friends wanted to come join us for the sort of training that we're doing. I made sure that his friends knew this is the type of training that we're doing is preparing you for reality. So it's going to be gardening. It's going to be growing food. It's going to be learning how to jar food, put food in jars.
Yep.
This isn't Rambo training because that's not reality. That's just not reality. You
Yeah.
guys that are going to be young adults and self-sufficient and on your own in the next 20 years need to know how to grow food. You need to know where your food comes from, okay? Because it may not be the grocery store in 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, at least, I get to practice that here soon, when a lot more when I move, because I have some property now, that we're finally moving on to, that we're trying to sell this house from eventually. And we're gonna grow. I'm gonna have a big garden where it's all good. It's half of it's forested, so we're gonna learn like different plants and wildlife identification.
Yes.
Obviously, everybody's gonna learn how to shoot a weapon of some sort. I think it is important, especially in a country where guns are very prevalent. Just like Melissa said on learning how to box or do martial arts, is you don't ever have to own a gun, but you should know how to use one. You
Right.
should definitely
Right.
know how to safely use one, because a situation may arise when you need to safely disarm someone with a weapon, or disarm a weapon itself that, say, is on the ground, or somebody else disarmed someone and you're right there and you need to help take care of that weapon. You need to know how to make it safe so that it doesn't go off. You need to know how to disassemble and reassemble it, just for your own safety. Learn on a handgun and learn on a rifle. You don't have to learn on a M4 or an AR or an AK or anything like that. Learn on a 9 mil handgun and learn on a hunting rifle of some sort, a long rifle. Like, those are simple weapons that you can learn how to control and what it feels like to shoot a weapon, so that you
Right.
know what it's like and know how to safely handle one, and then learn how to put it down, and learn the
Exactly.
safety behind it, because then you can also go into your home. Sorry. Or you can go into, say, if you have family members who also own guns and you know how to safely handle them, and you see that they're not safely stored or safely managed, you can go, hey, that's super unsafe. Your kid is going to pick that gun up at some point and hurt someone, or their friend is going to do it accidentally, or somebody's going to accidentally get to that. You need to store that, or you need to get it out of your house. And if you don't, I won't ever come back until you do. Put a line in stone. Make not in the sand. Don't make lines in the sand anymore. Make
Yeah.
lines in stone so that they don't move. So that when you
Right.
say, "Nah, I'm good. This is the line we won't cross," is if there's an unsafe weapon in somebody's house that's easily accessible by a child, make sure it's known to them that you will not go into that house until it is safely stored.
Yep.
Cut your relationship off and they'll change it. If you don't ever come back and that person was important, and if they feel you're important enough in their life to keep safe, they'll change. They'll fix their behavior because most people do.
Right.
Um, and I love it. Yours are so like practical and in-person skills. What I've been working on, not quite as practical, at least on the ground level, is I've been working in the background. Obviously, we've been talking for a while about a calendar system and management tooling so that we can unify our schedules. We're getting very close to doing. I'm doing a demo this afternoon with Courtney, and we're gonna hopefully get it tied up and maybe even started so people can start subscribing to this calendar, which would be a private calendar and a public calendar. So there's an internal facing calendar for us creators so that we can get our scheduling done and our shows aligned so that
That's
folks
awesome.
who are listening in with us right now who want to listen in with, say, Gen Xy before this show, um, any of the next shows during the day, and then make sure that we don't put them on top of each other. Like you're not missing content and we're not wasting effort. So everybody can be part of it because there's space throughout the day for everybody. And there's space throughout 24/7, 365 for everybody. Like it has to be a constant media cycle, unfortunately. As much as we
Right.
hate it, yeah, it's a
Hmm.
constant media cycle. And how do we fill that void with good media? And I don't say news, I say media in this because not everything is news. Not all the
Right.
stuff we're doing, like this isn't a news show. We're not talking about like breaking news and what's going on in the world right now because there's shit. Like we are the cool thing about this show right now is it is on the end of every week for the year so we can mark which week it is basically of the year by what show we're doing. So welcome to week 2, the end of week 2 going into week 3 of 2026, and the world feels like it's on fire, and we don't need to talk about that in this discussion because we talk about it in plenty of others. That said, a calendar, like a tooling that could be useful for both creators and the community, where you guys can get Google, like you subscribe to a calendar, you can easily go to a web page and you can see all of our shows. And the end goal is that you will have the links to go straight to those shows from the calendar so
That's
that you guys
phenomenal.
don't have to find them. You don't have to look
Hmm.
around and go, where are my favorite creators? When is Melissa on? When is Waj on? When is Zev Shalev with Ellie Leonard coming on for the latest Epstein updates? When are Sherrod Sweeney and Gavin Faber coming on for latest or civic actions that they're doing with, say, coordination and work that they're supporting for Indivisible or legislative ideas, or when a breaking story happens, like where do you find and know who's the truth? Well, come to Banner Central. Come to the Banner support site, basically, that's going to help get you that calendar and that information. Then on top of it, I've got 2 other projects I'm starting to work on really in depth. Both one I'm going to hopefully get one of our good friend Shane Urick's idea. So he is going to be the lead on that one, and I'm going to support him around there. And it's our own smart news aggregation and support system that we're working on, to pull, rate, and filter content from reliable and smart
Oh, that's
sources
awesome.
that we know of, with rankings and and immediacy, or like
Yes.
card levels of like how breaking or how extreme or how important this news might be, in relation with others, and how it ranks and connects to other pieces. We're going to be using some AI in there to work on it. We're going to be smart about it. We're going to be very controlled and ethical in our AI uses. I'm also, it's very expensive, so I can't afford most of them yet, but there are some very, very good ethical sources and tooling out there that, once we have financial support in the long run, or larger growth on Banner and Backbone, and more paid subs here, along with other things that we're working on, like merch and stuff like that. Like, I'm not pressing merch because I know that's not an important thing. It is for financing, but it's not important for me in terms of, I don't want your money like that. Like, I just want your support so we can build these
Mhm.
tools. Um, is that tool is the news aggregation and ranking sources, so that we can all do good investigative work, and know that the sources we're getting are reliable, and we can filter out content that is gross and is not what we want, or what we need to be spreading, because there's a lot of fake stuff going around. There are fake stories going around the Epstein files, and there's going to be damage done when a f if and when a fake story comes out. Well, ground news is great, but it's expensive as shit, and I don't own the algorithm. I don't
It is.
own their search tool. I don't own how they get that content. If we as a community can own that, we don't rely on billionaires. We don't rely on somebody else's
Hmm.
resources to tell us that that is the good news, or that is where all the news is coming from. We get that. We could integrate tools that we want and we find are important. And I want it to be eventually an open source project, so that others can add into this, so that it is a community project for pro democracy, and pro democracy efforts.
Yeah, I think it's important that everyone realize that how much it costs us to operate, to bring you the content that we bring, so many different levels. The story broke of the Washington Times reporter, or Washington Post reporter, that got a visit from FBI, and they took her phone and her Garmin watch because she wouldn't reveal a source. And I got
That's so
this
fucking
office that
illegal.
I'm sitting in. Right. I got this office because I was up at night. I could not sleep thinking about men in suits coming to my house where my children sleep, because I broke a story about the Navy, or because I broke a story about anything, about military, about classified documents, about anything. I don't want the FBI coming to my house if I can bring all of my content, all my stuff to an office. So, because of that, I have to pay for an office space every month. We have to pay for streaming services. We have to pay for platforms, to bring the information that we bring out. It all costs money. And like I said earlier, it feels corny sometimes to ask for money, to ask for paid subscribers, but that's the reality of it. Mega
Mm,
news networks not only have paid journalists, they pay their journalists a salary, they get benefits. On top of that, you have a team of lawyers that's there for you if you get personally sued because you broke a story that somebody didn't like. There are
yeah, I don't have
protections
that.
built in. Right, we don't have that. Right. So we're just shooting in the dark here, going out and telling people the truth. And I'll never forget when I one of the first bigger stories that I wrote on Substack, I had one of my readers message me, and she grew up in Russia, and she said, I just want you to be aware of the reality of what happens when fascist regimes control the media. And she told me the story of waking up early one morning to a pop outside and looking out her window, and the reporter from the pretty small local paper who lived across the hall from her was lying in the snow. And so she's like, you just need to realize that if you start talking and you start telling the truth and you start exposing the government as the government is corrupt, you just have to be really careful. You have to be aware. There are things that I learned in the military. I don't know if they taught you this. I dealt with top secret materials and other such things.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
was taught to take a different route every day on the way home. Don't be predictable. Change up your schedule. You know, it's a little bit of
Yes.
struggle to do that when you have kids in school and they have to get there at a certain time and they got to be picked up at a certain time, you know? So all of that is always in my mind. I do take a different route home every day, and I do think I will feel a little bit better when I have a concealed permit and I can simply have it on me. And it's ridiculous that we're at a point of saying that. And I think it's going to be very interesting. Somebody in the chat said, you know, what is going to happen when the what would happen if you shot back? If they kick in your front door and they're met with a 12 gauge, I think we're close to finding that out. I don't think people, it's certainly the people of Minneapolis don't appreciate the way they're being treated. And I think we're very close to that tipping point where a citizen shoots back. And then we're going to see just
Yeah.
how robust the Second Amendment is. Then we're going to see what rights we actually have when it comes to gun ownership. And maybe that can work in our favor because that's going to bring a whole lot of people over that line from MAGA if suddenly guns aren't okay. If suddenly, suddenly the government wants to have a limit
Well, I think
on
it will be
firearms.
interesting to see on that one, depending on who shoots back and
Right,
who the person is that shoots, because I have a feeling that a lot of MAGA doesn't care if brown or black people have guns. It's just as long as they have their guns. And as that
right.
means just as long as white people have guns, they don't care if anybody else has the right to them. So I think it'll be really interesting, which is, again, it's white supremacy built into our system. My main action of this year is to try and dismantle as much as I can on my own side and give tools to others to dismantle white supremacy in your own life and your
Right.
own communities. And some of us, that's harder than others because some of us live in the South or some of us live in very MAGA filled areas. It's not just the South, it's all over the country. It's a lot of rural areas because rural areas, for the most part, were abandoned in a lot of ways. A lot of rural areas were left behind and were made to be poor, and things went very urban. I'm not saying that's I'm not I'm I think that was a bad thing. I think we always overcorrect when we do things. There is a center point that is not center right. And I don't say center. I said this with Walter Ryan yesterday while I was talking to him was we always assume that the only center point in America is what the center right thinks and what the center regressive party thinks. And we've been trying that since our inception as a country. We tried it and it caused the Civil War.
Hmm.
We tried it and it brought us the KKK, and it has now brought us Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt and all of those assholes were trying the same things over and over again of how far can we lean center right? Well, for once, how about folks like Adam Kinzinger go out there and lean center left, center progressive? Because everywhere else in the established world, and I'm not going to say first world, second, or third world, because those are racist words too. That classification system is meant to lessen the value of those that we deem third world. We see
Right.
ourselves as first world. We're not. We are not in the same league as other developed nations. We do not have social health care. We do not have social services like education assistance or housing or food or any of those things. We can if we break down white supremacy. White
Right.
supremacy is what is holding us back because people think that everything that's going on, it's fake rugged individualism, and so I'm fighting back against that in every action I do this year. Um, and one of those, the next tool that I'm working on, is going to be a fun way to fight back against that. Um, is I'm going to try and see how we can combat the epistemic war and disinformation war that's going on with our own um, blast efforts, our own blast radius, our own amplifiers, one might say, um, where we get to put out content in a much broader way very fast with multiple users and sources and similar content feeds, almost like what the right does, where they flood the zone with
Flood
bullshit,
the zone.
but
Hmm.
we flood the zone with good shit. We flood the zone with our offense, what we're for. Flood the zone on social media because we've abandoned certain platforms for good reason, but we don't have to actively be the person posting on that platform if we can amplify our content, say from Substack, onto other platforms, or a simple because Substack doesn't have a public API, so you can't really do much with Substack programmatically, um, which I understand not having a public API because it lessens the risk of bot farms and that sort of um, negative feedback that comes with API usage, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an application programming interface. It's where it's your calls to the back end of a program that say, get me this, update this, create this, delete this. And that's pretty much it. Um, or pass me this and send this to somewhere else. I used to work with them all the time. And so I'm going to create a system that can help us expand and amplify our messages. Um, oh, Courtney says jokingly in the chat, no, API just means we need to get creative to automate. Or no API just means we need to get creative to automate. Yes, which is we automate from Substack. We use
Right.
Substack because Substack has a built-in RSS feed for the note feed for your content. So we can amplify our Substack content onto other platforms programmatically. And I'd like to figure out how to do that simply so that we can do it in a cost-effective way, either
But we're
just
having
running
to
a
go
desktop.
through like our good friend Ellie Leonard was
Mhm.
telling me the other day. She gave me a tool to put my Substack links through because Twitter and Meta are actively suppressing Substack. Why do you think they're suppressing Substack? Why do
Mm.
you think they're suppressing Substack? Like, why?
Mhm.
Because people are telling the truth over here. Because there's more
Yep.
independent journalism happening on Substack than on any other centralized platform. And now the social media gods have decided that we're going to try to obfuscate that attempt. So, yeah, now we have to go through these third tools, to filter our links and our URLs through those third party tools in order for them not to be massively suppressed on
Yep.
these other platforms. So the technology loops just keep going that we have to keep up with in order to keep getting that information out there.
Yeah, and so it's a race. It's a race to get all of this content out there and information out there because they've been doing it for decades. The right has been funding and doing this for decades. Yet the left, people who are pro democracy or pro dignity or pro values and pro rights and pro equality and real pro life, because that's what I am. I am pro life. I want people to live. I want people to live life. I don't want you to be a slave to the system. I'm pro life because I want you to
Mhm.
live a life of dignity and value and inherent worth. And we're taking back words and shit, but we need to get onto these platforms, and we need to do it in a way that is safe for us, that may obfuscate who we are a little bit. Um, because, I don't want ice thugs just coming to my door, or some folks just coming and blowing my door down and assaulting my family and me and my children and my wife and my pets, because the end of that would result in a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, because I have 3 dogs who will protect the shit out of my family, who
Right.
will protect my family very well, because they know who their babies are. They know who they're supposed to protect. And we're lucky that has not happened yet, too. There have been no dog assaults that we have report or heard reporting
Right.
on, or dog killings. And dog killer Christy Nome ain't got no problem killing a dog just because it growls or barks a little bit, because she shot hers in the fucking face. Um,
Hmm.
and we can combat that by breaking the disinformation cycle a little bit. It's both in person, like you have to live that action, you have to break the disinformation in person, like Melissa is doing, where she's talking to her kids and giving experiences. Like, we went to I'll do a quick aside. We went to Nashville, to the zoo there, to the Nashville Zoo. There is, if you go to the top of the zoo, it started as a plantation farm and a farm. And it eventually got owned by one of the prior slave families, from what I remember. Yet the house that they lived in was tiny, and it's there. You can see both the plantation owner's house, and then right behind it, the uh, the field worker's house, the field hand's house, the slave's house. It's tiny, and you can see and know that, and you can feel the difference just visually. And my kids went in and saw both, and we read through all the plaques, just like you did. We love museums. Is
Yes.
do is you have to in person. Oh shit, Shane's joined us. Hello, my friend.
Hi.
Welcome, brother.
I figured I'd get in here for 10 minutes. I just got back from walking the dogs and I was like, I fucking
Hi,
miss you guys.
Shane.
Did you accept your co-host invite?
I
Pop
believe
your
I
name up
did.
on the
I
pop
should
your name
have.
up on the chat with us.
I should have.
Doesn't show you yet, but that's okay.
I'll go look at it.
I'm
I'm just
glad.
happy to be here.
Yeah, man. We were talking about you a little bit. So
Uh-oh.
I want to build in on so today's all about action, in practice, and what we're actually doing. And Melissa's been giving us a lot of really like in-person, on ground, real life, practical skills, and ideas. And I was talking about our tech stuff and some of the ideas that we're working on, and a
Yep.
news aggregation system, and how we can immeasurably speed up our ability to put out quality, reliable, and trusted content with, that aggregator, an aggregator bot and tool to help us identify, um, useful or unuseful news coming out of different areas. And I want to get your thoughts on what you're doing around that, things you're willing to share, publicly, around some of the things that you're working on, for your actions to support, and practices that you're doing right now to support the pro democracy and pro freedom and dignity movement.
Yeah, so, I said this actually on my live yesterday. I might be American, but I believe that my job is to all people. I am a democracy advocate, and the world is needs to see what's going on. People need to understand the state of things, and in particular, Americans that I think are ignorant, particularly need this because they don't even understand what's coming for them. And if you look at Iran, and I'm so fucking tired of seeing body bags and piles of bodies. Okay. I look at these things so you guys, don't have to. Okay. But I've seen thousands of corpses in the months that I've been doing this. Okay. People don't fucking understand. You guys, Americans, you don't get it. You don't get it. You really don't get it. It's really, really, it can get so much worse. And, what I think is important, and I don't know if you guys saw, I fucking went off last night. I was pissed. And I said, like, look, you know, you're gonna, if you are going to indict Jerome Powell, fucking indict him. Do it. Shut the fuck up and do it. At this point, like, we need to be looking at the government and say, Annie up, let's go. You want to do it? Fucking do it. Enough talk. I don't really give a shit. All right, you fucked up everything, so back your fucking horse and do it. Do it. And we'll and see what happens. Fuck around and find out. You want to invade Minneapolis? You want to send thousands of Proud Boys into Minneapolis? Do it. See what happens. Fuck around, find out. That's it. Stop reporting.
I want to know how we can get the numbers from the airport in Minneapolis, because the amount of people that I know personally who have gone, who are, and most of them are veterans.
Yeah.
They know how to fight, and they're going.
This is an interesting moment. And this is why I'm saying, stop reporting on Trump flipping off an auto worker. Who fucking cares? Jesus Christ, I have seen so many people report on that. And I'm sorry, there's people I love and support who have made a post about it. I can give you 14 things that happened yesterday that are way more impactful on the lives of Americans than Donald Trump flipping off somebody as he's walking to a sporting event. Who fucking cares? Ignore every single word out of his mouth. He gets no press. Why? Because what he says doesn't matter. You know what matters is look at the press releases coming out of the White House. Look at the press releases coming out of the Department of Energy. Look at the press releases coming out of DHS. Look at those. That is tangible, real things happening to you right now. Will affect you right now. This whole Powell thing is a direct reaction to them shooting Renee Nicole Good in the face. In the fucking face. That's all this is. That's it. Like, charge him, move on. Like, we need this whole, like, I've seen people say this. We need to, be patient, now plan them. No, this is a fucking war, okay, for our democracy. This is a war for our democracy, and there is no more time on, Nick, who has been in combat, Melissa, who has served, both of you guys know, when you don't have the initiative, you don't sit back and plan. You have to be fluid. You have to react to the threats in front of you. And it's time for us to say, go and make the threat. Enough talk. Make your threat, do it, and see what happens. Because this state of paralysis they have locked us in, as we look at words, a statement out of his mouth, out of Kristi Noem's mouth, out of Stephen Miller's mouth, why do we treat it like policy? It's not policy. It doesn't fucking matter. Look, I'm telling you guys, I look around the world as I get these news for other countries. I don't read what their leaders are saying. I don't read what the rhetoric is coming out of the government. I look at how many bodies are in the street. Mm-hmm. Like, look, there's your body in the street on camera. Let's stop. And I mean this, and I say this to every journalist out there who knows me, who's watching this, who's doing this. I'm calling on you to stop. Stop. That's what we need. We need you to stop and focus, because they captured independent media in the same loop that MSM was caught in. And I'm tired of it. Like, I'm tired of watching people get shot in the face. I watch them get shot in the face in countries where they're second and third world countries, and this shit happens all the time. This shit shouldn't happen here. I shouldn't be watching these fucking videos in America. These guys aren't ICE agents. They're not ICE agents. They're not. The list that just got leaked in Sweden, unconfirmed or not confirmed, of course they're going to say there's a fucking Proud Boy leader on there. Like, think about this. I want to pose something to you guys. I'm curious of your thoughts. I thought about this last night. So 2016, 2017, Proud Boy leaders come out, support Trump. Election goes on. He loses. Extremism. They're still supporting, feeding this base. If you are going to do a fascist coup, you need a group of Hitler Youth. Who's their Hitler Youth? They said, we're going to groom the fucking Proud Boys for this. Right before the election, and he won. You started to see Proud Boy leaders around him again. This was very quiet, happened very quickly, and it stopped. ICE starts. And now I'm watching ICE interact in the streets. These guys aren't trained law enforcement. They're talking about warrants like they don't know what the fuck a warrant is. They are not educated in the actual fucking law. A real police officer would never slam a woman's head into the hood of his vehicle and say, I'll fucking shoot you in the head. Absolutely not. These are malignant, narcissistic, misogynist, white nationalist idiots who they gave guns and badges and sent into the street as a private, indoctrinated militia. Okay, so if that's where we're at,
But they are getting certain training
to
because
kill,
they're getting training to death box. Right.
Yeah,
to torture,
they are, and I talked to Jen Budd on Monday with Zev Shalev about the ICE and their training and what they're trained to do. They're trained to treat us as the enemy. They're trained to treat
Right.
us
We are the enemy
by default as domestic terrorists.
We've always
That's
been the
their
enemy,
first
Nick.
assumption.
For these
No,
people,
but they're
we've
now
always been the enemy.
Yes, we have always been the enemy. And with NSPM 7, the National Presidential Security Memo number 7, their instinct is now to further treat us like domestic terrorists by default. If you look lesbian or gay in any way, you make that list. If like that's what they want. That's who they
Kristi
treat
Noem
us
came out and
as.
told us at the press conference that agent did as he was trained.
Yes, he did.
She literally told us.
Yep.
She
And
literally said
she didn't even lie.
he did what we told to do.
Yep.
He did what he was promised by the government. He did what he was promised. They promised the Proud Boys, you get to go into the streets. You get to treat minorities like trash and kill them and torture them. You will get to treat women like garbage and shoot them in the face. That is our promise to you if you are loyal to us. This is a Hitler Youth. And I've been trying to figure, and you know what? I give Arturo Dominguez full credit because he said this when I was talking to him a week ago, and it stuck in my head. And after watching more videos and watching these people in ICE, like they all they're all white dudes. They all wear glasses and masks. Why? Because they've always worn masks. This is it's a comfort thing for them because they do it because of their entire life story. They've been hateful people behind masks their whole lives. Look, if the Proud Boys are our DHS enforcement, that is news. That's news. That's something we should talk about. Okay. How they're acting. That's something we should talk about. I know Illinois and oh my God. Well, it's Wisconsin. I'm sorry. But basically Illinois filed a lawsuit in one other state. I believe it was in the Minneapolis as well. That's a suit. That's a physical suit. That's a lawsuit. That's happening. Report that. Don't report what Kristi Noem said. Don't report what they said. Doesn't matter. Who cares what they say? What does the physical document say? What is the state? Because, and also I do want to point out as well, lastly, I know I'm ranting into your last 10 minutes. I'm sorry. But, the last thing I would say is if I'm looking at how they've handled things in the court, it's the same thing. It's just hearsay. It's just extensions and suspensions. And there's been no real legal decision made. Again, this is decision paralysis. This is, and if you look at what's actually being done while they talk, real things are happening. Real things are happening beyond the Epstein files. Things that have been done that cannot be undone without us really just fucking federalizing. Just we need a government. We need a government. We cannot handle this as individuals, as NGOs, as states. We need a fucking government. We need, and you know what's, I'll say this. If we get a real government, you know how much we can hurt these people? You know how much they've committed? You know how much they lose if Congress suddenly says, we're freezing these assets. We're actually taking all of this land we've sold to the Saudis because it was illegal. And we're seizing all of their investments because it's foreign investment. You know how much pain we can cause? You know how much we can shut down the level of global corruption? Everything stems from us. All of this corporate billionaire hegemony, this comes from us. If we cut it out, if we cut out the cancer in America, we save the fucking world.
Yes.
I'm serious.
Yeah. And so one of the things I want to talk before we end our show today, because we're getting right at the top of the hour.
I'm sorry.
No, good. I love it. I love Shane Rants. We have to remember who the real enemy is. And yeah, Elizabeth Raven. If you're not following her, she's in the chat with us. Please subscribe to her. Hit her name on
Yes.
in the chat. You can subscribe to her from the chat, even on your phone or on your computer, wherever you're at using Substack for this. Subscribe to her. She's in Venezuela. I trust what she's talking about.
Yep.
She's intelligent. She's reasonable. She's talking real truths, and she's showing us what the fuck is going on in Venezuela. And she put out the memo or the motto that Kristi Noem now has on the DHS podium, which is from a Nazi massacre of an entire town, killed everyone in a town because they killed or harassed a Nazi, and it is one of us, all of yours. One of us, all of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And the comment was in the chat. Somebody said it earlier while I was talking about ISIS. They are trained to kill us. And yes, many on the right are trained and indoctrinated to want to hate us and kill us. It is our job. Our job is the harder job. Our task through all of this is the harder task, because our task is to build community. Our goal is to build community because democracy is an extension of our communities. And when our communities fracture and break, it becomes this one of us, all of you. One of them dies, all of us then get massacred. That's their goal.
Yes.
And we know that is what they want. One, they're now openly saying it. It's a threat. Two, they've been telling us it by their actions over and over again. So you need to go out, and if you're going to do stuff about ICE, you need to follow safety guidelines, and you need to go in teams, and you need to have body cams and dashboard cams and your phone on and multiple backup sources that they're going to, and you need to have a partner, a battle buddy, and you need to be safe, because our goal has
community. It's all about community.
De-escalation too, is we cannot be the escalatory factor in any of this. And that's where they think we're weak, is because just because we're not escalating doesn't mean we're not on the offense. One of the escalation techniques I would encourage everybody to start doing right now is, if you have a weak and feckless congressional member, House of Representatives specifically, if they're Republican and they're weak and they're thinking of retiring,
camp in their yard.
Go protest the shit out of them until they retire today. Make them retire early and now, because when the House of Representatives loses the ability to host a full quorum, there has to be a new election. When there are less members of Congress than there can be to fill a quorum in the House of Representatives, new elections have to happen immediately. Special elections have to happen immediately to make a quorum for the government.
We also need to be extremely involved in those elections. If we can get there, we need to be extremely involved in those elections. People need to choose to go and vote in person. Visibility is key to legitimacy. If they want to steal an election and you have everyone show up in person to vote, and the cameras see everyone and the exit polls say that everyone voted against these people and suddenly they win, legitimacy can be called into question. And I have one last thing I just want to throw in you guys' brains while I have you here. But the thing I've been looking at is, if you look at the people, the teams, the 160th SOAR, and who it was in Venezuela, and the 160th SOAR, who I believe currently is probably in Kuwait, or one of our bases in Saudi Arabia, getting ready to strike the Ayatollah regime. I've been saying, over the last week and a half that it's inevitable. I think we see it in the next couple of days. But the point is, they came out of Georgia, and I believe it was Kentucky. They picked the special operations unit in the Proud Boy backyard, and they've moved them an entire theater to conduct operations. So I'm curious as to what the motivations like for that might be. Could it be that it's because they only have special people that they are willing to do these kind of operations, special officers and individuals that are loyal within the regime in the Pentagon that are willing to carry out these operations without pushback? I don't think it's normal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's normal to have an operation in Venezuela with a special operations team and then turn around and send them across the world to do the same thing at a different regime. I think it's weird. I don't know, but for two people who are in the military, who have more insight than me, as an observer, I think that's weird, especially with the efforts they made to cover up them moving. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I see, Melissa, you responded to somebody, to Jandro in the chat about, I was going to respond to on this was, yes, you can form a well-regulated militia. You have a Second Amendment right to form a well-regulated militia.
Yeah.
That said,
Mhm.
well-regulated militias do not always need to be armed, do not have to have weapons. The
Right.
Second Amendment doesn't demand that your well-regulated militia be armed and aggressive and an actor of hate and oppression. It just says you can have a well-regulated militia and it can bear arms. So
Yeah.
go form a well-regulated militia to do something like poll watching. That's what poll watchers are. They are a well-regulated militia of citizens who watch the polls without violent means and without the threat of violence to support and serve the community. So go form a well-regulated militia. Go be part of a neighborhood watch that goes around and does ICE watch. Go do it safely. Those are well-regulated militias if
Humble
you
boys.
do it correctly. Humble boys. The
I want to
unproud
add a
boys.
little caveat. I'm
I
sure
like
that both of you will agree with this, because as you're saying to go and form a militia, if your militia chooses in a well-regulated manner to bear arms, do not bear arms. Choose the people in your community who are trained, who are veterans, who have handled these weapons, who know how to discern a target, who are not going to pull the trigger on the wrong person. Choose and choose these individuals. That's part of being a well-regulated militia. Have that group of people who are the security aspect, who are leaders in your community, who are going to not make the wrong call because they bought a gun for their militia, because that is a recipe for disaster. Do not just arm yourself to be part of a militia. Find people in your community who you trust to bear arms if you are going to do that. I think both of you will agree with me in saying that, but I think that it needs to be said. If we're going to go and say
Yes.
you can form a militia, you also need to be responsible, because like we've been saying, we
Yes.
can say step up, fuck around and find out. We're not starting it if we're telling them to do it, but
Right.
we're saying escalate and see what happens. A situation where people are armed and don't know how to handle weapons is how you reverse that, and we are in trouble then. We lose our legitimacy for our movement. It's very important.
Yeah, and I see in the chat around things like Eric, what you said is Florida law makes it illegal for private groups to organize as independent, unauthorized military units. Well, the Second Amendment says that citizens can form well-regulated militias. And I don't like firearms. I don't. Everyone should be trained on them. Yes. I'm not going to go around carrying one. And I encourage, if you are going to do a well-regulated militia, which requires orderly and proficient training and means, it provides collective security. It is citizen-based, and it is in contrast to a standing army. It is volunteer citizens who are not part of the government and not affiliated with the government. You can have well-regulated militias in this country without firearms. Yes, ICE is trying to make us more armed. ICE and the secret police and the Gestapo and CPB and PB in general are trying to make us more armed. And they want us to be more dangerous, because then they can just justified say, if you're carrying a weapon, they can say, oh my God, you're a threat to me. You have a weapon in your hand. Well, don't carry a fucking firearm if you're just walking around your neighborhood to do ICE patrols and just ICE watch. Carry a whistle and a blowhorn. Do not carry the firearm unless it's a concealed permit that you properly have and you are trained to use that weapon. Like Shane said, if you're not trained to use a weapon, don't fucking use it. You're going to hurt someone. Probably yourself.
But I love the way the Black Panthers approach this, because they are huge advocates for getting yourself armed and being trained, being very, very trained. Right. And diligent and disciplined with the use of that. But another thing that they advocate for is absolutely open carry everywhere, especially now that we have armed guard and militia on our streets. That's a message to them. Just you walking down the street open carrying is like, oh, okay, you're going to be in my neighborhood carrying a gun. Guess what, motherfucker? We have guns too. Okay. And we're going to let you know that because we're going to carry it on our hip. I don't need to be aggressive with you, but I clock your gun and you're going to clock mine. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we all need to be, if you are in any way capable of arming yourself and doing it through responsible means, do it legally. Go through the proper process, of course, and practice regularly. Go train regularly with that weapon so you are comfortable with it. And once you are completely comfortable with it, absolutely open carry ICE in your neighborhood so they see, okay, you're going to come in my neighborhood and brandish guns everywhere. We have guns too.
Yeah, and I think you said something really important, Melissa. And I think, as I'm big on language, you guys know I'm big on words. I think we call it a regime because it's a regime. It's not administration. ICE is not an enforcement agency. It is a fascist militia. Yeah. Let's call them what they are. They are a militia that is loyal to the Trump regime. They are not loyal to the Constitution. They are not beholden to federal law. They are a militia. Let's stop calling them an enforcement agency. They're a terrorist group. They are a militia. Language matters. When you're talking to someone, say, yeah, the ICE militia shot someone in the street the other day. They shot the ICE militia shot, Renee Nicole Good in the face. They did that. It wasn't an ICE officer. It was a militia. It was a insurgent, whatever you want to call them. They're not officers. The word officer suggests some kind of credibility, some kind of affiliation with a legal code or following or enforcing some kind of law. There's no difference between an ICE agent and a Islamist organization enforcing Sharia law. Okay, I'm going to be very candid. Okay, there's no difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I don't disagree on any of those points. But I just want to make sure too, like the gun issue, the handling of weapons issue is going to be a divisive issue for a lot of us.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's okay. We're in a really fucking divisive situation right now where people are really afraid. And I'm going to, again, just say, if you choose to use a gun or handle one, and Melissa said it too, and that's the big key in all of this, is if you choose to have a weapon with you, you need to be fully registered with it. You need to have all of the proper licensing for your own safety. It does not matter if ICE is going to look at your paperwork or not. In the end, when it comes to a criminal prosecution, if they don't kill you and they try and say you provoked them, you have all this stuff that says, no, I legally own this the proper way. I was just following my rights as a citizen. This is what I have. This is my thing. And yes, it is a provocation. They're provoking people into doing this. And that's why I'm saying also depending on your community, if you feel comfortable doing it,
Yeah.
go in groups. And if you're going to be a well-regulated and armed militia, know what the fuck you're doing. Because
Yeah.
if you shoot somebody, you make a statement for everyone else in the country.
Yeah. If you don't want,
if
Right.
you start violence, if you are the provoker of violence, even if a situation breaks out when you have to defend yourself, you have to know how to also de-escalate, because the one who can de-escalate correctly and fastest will win that
Yes.
situation.
Yeah.
Our goal always has to be the more peaceful resistance method, because that's how we win. The longer we hold out peacefully, the higher chance we have of winning this.
yeah.
And
I will say
we
this.
have to be disciplined, if you're carrying a firearm, to not shoot back. You have to
Right.
be disciplined with your firearm to say, this is a deterrent, but I am not here to shoot you. I am here to protect from criminals and crime. And if that just happens to be a federal agent who is pretending to be a Fed and is just a secret police officer, or a Gestapo member wearing ice, and the only thing they haven't done is put eyes that look like thunderbolts on their, or lightning bolts on their fucking jackets yet, like, you have the right to defend your life, liberty, and property in this country.
Yeah.
And we have the right.
And the only thing I'm going to gently push back on, because I have a lot of respect for these people in the comments, but I want it to be like, I've had a lot of discussions with our community here, which is an extraordinary amount of veterans and an extraordinary owning homes. ICE isn't here. ICE isn't in red cities and red towns with lots of open carry citizens. Okay, so I know it's a divisive issue, but we are in unprecedented times, and we are dealing with an unprecedented militia. Okay, and so the mentality has to match theirs on some level. But we are watching in Norfolk, we've had some very quiet meetings with people, meetings that have gotten so large we need bigger venues. And I think that all of us agree that the reason that ICE is not being as aggressive here, they are being very timid here actually, is because of the sheer amount of gun owners, registered gun owners in our city.
They're cowards, right? They're cowards. It's a militia of cowards who are looking to, punch on the little guy, right? That's the whole regime, right? They're not gonna fucking take Greenland because they're not willing to shoot, because Denmark and Europe did the right thing and they said, we'll fucking shoot you if you show up here. They pick on the little guy. They pick on Iran while they're down so they can try and facilitate regime change. They pick on Maduro and Venezuela because they can, because it's in their backyard and they can do it. So I think the last thing I want to say is what they're saying is very true. I'm going to say the end goal, where they're taking us, where the Proud Boys, ICE, whoever they are, if they're not Proud Boys, this radicalized militia that serves them, we have probably one more shot for a general strike before that ship has sailed. Why can we not strike for good? Why? Like, stop doing everything. Stop it. Have that conversation. Try again. Try one more time. Please. I'm imploring everybody, please try one more time. For good. Do it for good. For the good of this country, for Renee Nicole Good, strike. And show the power of what they would actually be facing if they do it. That's how you show that they lose, because they do. But we don't want hundreds, thousands of people to die. No one wants that.
Right.
They will lose. They will lose. But this country doesn't need to bleed for it. We don't need to bleed.
Right.
They're cowards.
Yes.
They're cowards. So that's all. I know people are getting ready. I know we're talking about guns. Let's just try it one more time, please. You know, like, I think we can do it. I think that Renee Nicole Good can be that. I think that
Yeah.
it's got a hell of a ring to it. Strike for good. So.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. We have to do this all together. And let's leave it on that today is we need to organize. If you're not working to organize, you're doing it wrong right now. Like,
Yep.
even if it's digital organizing, work to organize in your communities, in your groups, and be well prepared. I'm not going to tell people to not prepare themselves.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself for whatever possibility that may come because we are rising through fascism and white supremacy and the new Confederacy. Treat it like that and treat yourself safely, your neighbors safely, and prepare. But do it safely and get trained. And again, the Second Amendment
Yes.
guarantees the right for all Americans to form a well regulated militia outside of the standing army because our founders feared a standing army for the country.
Mhm.
We can form those militias, and they do, and they're already out there. They're plenty, like Melissa said, there are groups already out there that have been doing this for decades. Civil rights have had militias for decades. We have to be part of that community support structure now in whatever way we can as safely as possible. So
Mhm.
let's shift over real quick, say goodbye, give a chance for everybody to talk about themselves just for one moment, and then we'll hop off and let everyone go for the day. So first, come support Banner and Backbone here. Need the support. It helps us build these systems. I'm trying to build tools, building software infrastructure, and tooling is not cheap. In the long run, it does cost quite a bit of money to host software. I'm going to try and do it as inexpensively as possible for myself and Shane in initial for some of the tools, and then we're going to expand it out as quickly as possible so others can get supported by these things. But come help Banner and Backbone so I can do that, because that's going to pay for things like coding repositories and code tooling and licensing fees that we need so that we can do the correct calls and the correct programmatic things to support building these systems behind the scene. Then they're not here, but Support Centered America. They help us with this show. They are our friends. They're our allies. Sherrod Swaney and Gavin Favor are two incredible young men doing some incredible
Mhm.
fucking work. And they're giving us a lot of tools to be able to give out to you guys too. So support Centered America. Next, Shane, you jumped in late. My brother is a firebrand. Not everyone's going to agree with what he says, and that's okay.
No.
I don't agree with everything Shane says, and Shane doesn't agree with everything I say. And we push back on each other, and that's the point, is because we grow and we learn and we mold our decisive action together. And Shane is a firebrand. He's someone out front lighting the way. Like I said yesterday on one of my shows, be a lighthouse, not a foghorn. Shane is being a lighthouse. Help support Shane.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, brother?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you see me on here, you see me, going off ranting. That's, that's me, right? But the other thing that I do is I am, one, we got our first analyst on board, Kat Bauer. So stoked to have her picking up the Epstein files. She's going to be running with that. And we're growing the think tank, right? It's the idea is to bring minds in to solve problems. Critical thinkers, people who can put it together. That's what we're doing. That's what you're supporting when you join and subscribe to the Firebrand Project. That's what this is about. I am committed to providing real-time reporting every day on geopolitics, on the global situation, so people can understand the things that happen away from home that affect us here, and most importantly in America at the moment, what the hell we're doing to fuck up the rest of the world. So if you want to be informed, if you want to cut through the noise and not hear what Trump says every day and not see who he flipped off, come watch the Firebrand Report, read the Firebrand Report newsletter, get informed, not riled up with this whole thing, and that's the goal. So come support us, come check us out, and I'm excited to see what Kat brings as well. I'm very excited about that announcement. So.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it as always. Thanks for jumping on with us too. And if you're not in the show's banner right now, I will make sure that you get tagged post show so that you've also got because you jumped in with us, brother. Appreciate it so much.
I wanted to see you guys for sure. So
hell yeah, I love it when you do too. And then next, there's so much I could say about Melissa. It could take another hour just talking about Melissa and how she's a pillar of our community and is how I found so many folks in this community. So go support Melissa and go follow Melissa because she is a pillar of this effort. And I have so much respect for this woman. And I've been able to make a friendship with her. And I'm so glad for our friendship and the knowledge and just you. So thank you, Melissa, and everyone. Come thank Melissa too. Come support her.
Yes.
Melissa, anything you got us closing words for yourself today?
The feeling is quite mutual, Nick and Shane. I'm so grateful to have met you guys and call you from. Yeah, definitely support Counterstory, subscribe to Counterstory Media. But more importantly, I'm going to challenge you today to look in all your local community boards and forums and find a meeting that you can go to, a mutual aid meeting, a community organizing meeting. Like I said, our city has decided, some residents on their own, to have some organizing meetings to start getting some plans in place for what happens when ICE decides to do to Norfolk what they've done to, so that we will be prepared. So get out in your community, start asking around who's organizing, how can I get involved? If that looks like your civic league meeting, go to your civic league meeting, meet your immediate neighbors, and make sure that your community, your neighborhood is going to be okay. How many immigrants are in your neighborhood? Do you know? Right? So get to know your neighbors and get involved in your immediate community. There's nothing that pretty much any of us can do on a national level that's going to be more impactful than right there where you live. Within 2 miles of your residence should be your immediate focus of making sure your neighbors are okay, prepared, like our weirdo friend. If you don't have backup food systems, backup medical care, backup housing, and backup safety situations, you don't have parallel systems of support, you have vibes. We don't run resistance on vibes, okay? No. So get out there and do the unsexy work of going to the public meeting and making sure that you're plugged in with your community. That's my challenge.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Exactly. Great advice. Everyone should take it and execute on it.
Exactly. And finally, again, come support Banner and Backbone. I won't do my other one for now, but come support Banner and Backbone because this is all about growing this network right now and trying to build the systems to support and blast our content so we can win the epistemic war while we're doing all of this.
Absolutely.
So thank you, everyone, for being with us. I appreciate y'all in the chat. I appreciate the two of you and joining me today. It's always fun to talk with you. We will be back next week for another episode of The Window of Discussion. Go out, like Melissa said, and go do something actionable today. This year is all about action and doing it. So do something actionable and go help support your communities. Thanks all, and we'll see you next week.